Welcome to Enlightened Evolution.
I'm Cay.
And I'm Christina.
We're here to discuss the ebb and flow of our soul's healing and transformation through self-reflection, choosing intentionally, honoring thyself, and following your inner guide.
Thank you for joining this safe space with us.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you're at throughout your day. Welcome back to Enlightened Evolution with Cay and Christina. This episode, we're covering all things friendships, when to end them, what we need more of, and just how we should feel in our day-to-day friendships, how we should be interacting with them, and how we can find discernment on whether or not they're still healthy for us. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that throughout my life, I've had friends come and go. The hardest ones for me were the ones that I've known since childhood. And they feel so much more a part of me than like almost like a family. Like when
Yeah.
they've exited my life, it's almost been like family leaving you, or, that detachment for them really has hurt. So, yeah, that's what we're going to get into today. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. We finally have a rainy day. I feel like I still have a Michigan mentality down here in Georgia where I
Yeah.
feel like I have to be outside for every sunny day.
Mm-hmm.
So we have so many here, and then I end up like not doing the projects I need to do in the house. So I have this moss wall art thing that I've been planning. So I think I'm going to get to that today. And we also have a crab boil planned for dinner. I
Ooh.
got some king crab legs yesterday and I'm so excited. How are you doing?
I'm doing better today than yesterday. I've just been working a lot of overtime, and this exhaustion just hit me yesterday, and I'm still kind of feeling that today. So I'm like very mellow. But I feel well rested. I feel good. King crab sounds good. So Jordan's making that.
Yeah, I can't wait. He makes like the way he seasons his seafood boils so good.
Mhm. I think that seriously, like, my dad cooks good steak, but when I was in Georgia with you guys, I don't know what sauce he had on that steak, like, the best steak, sorry, dad, that I think that I've ever had was that steak that he and I'm not, like, a big meat eater. I don't even really eat steak like that. I mean, it was perfection.
Oh, I'll tell him you said that. He'll be
Yeah.
happy.
I'll tell him. He can make up another I remember he was like, "Do you want your steak cut?" And I'm like, Should I have this grown man cut my steak? He already cooked it for me." Like
Yeah, go ahead.
and then, like, at first I was like, "No." I was like, "Yeah." So he cooked it and cut it for me, so oh, so good. I think about
Yeah.
it often, actually.
I do too. We have that on a regular rotation in our dinners because it's so good.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. And I haven't ate breakfast yet. I could literally eat that steak for breakfast right now. Okay.
Oh, that's the other thing I'm super excited about today. I went to Cava yesterday and I have half of my bowl left for lunch and I'm gonna tear into that bitch.
Is that what you that picture you sent me yesterday?
That picture, mhm,
I don't know if
so
there's a
good.
cava up here. I've never heard of
Probably
that.
somewhere.
It looked healthy though, it looked yummy.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have I mean, it's basically, like, essentially, Mediterranean fast food,
Oh, okay.
but still very healthy, so you guys have a ton of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean
Yeah.
restaurants. We don't have here.
Yeah, we do. There's a new one I told you about that one in Flushing that you gotta go to when you come up here.
Oh, yeah. Yes. We have to go there.
So, I guess here we go. I think that right now I think I have 2 friends like you and my other girlfriend, Ty, that I talk to you guys almost daily. And then I have other friends that are usually like mostly like my cousins that I still consider them close friends. I don't talk to them every day, but when we do talk, it's nothing but love and like validation, what you're going through, and your feelings are acknowledged, and you don't ever feel slighted by them. I have my coworkers, which I consider them close friends while I'm at work with them. I don't really see them outside of work, but there's a couple close ones that it's like we know everything that goes on in each other's lives and we catch up while we're at work, and I really appreciate those friendships while I'm there. What about you? How many do you well, and then I have acquaintances that like, we'll talk here and there, but it's like really superficial. Do you have
Mhm.
and I feel like it's gone in phases in my life too. Like there's been a lot of
Certain
people.
people hold certain roles at different
Yeah,
times.
yeah. And there's a lot of people I've had to let go of as well. Do you find yourself having, like, a couple close friends you talk to every single day, or is it just
Yeah, and I think we led into it in our last episode, like, especially I used to feel like I had a ton of friends, and that also had part to do with, like, my people pleasing and wanting to be liked by people, and then after my spiritual awakening, it was like my circle got so much smaller, and it's so peaceful and it's fine, but to, like, think back to myself when I thought, like, having a bunch of friends meant that I was a good person or well liked or whatever I
Mhm,
thought, that version of me would have looked at my life now and been like, "Oh my god, that's so lonely," or whatever. But the people that I hold close to me now in my life truly enrich my life, and it's beautiful. I know we're gonna get into ending friendships, but there was a friendship that ended for me within the last year, and mutual friends have reached out and they're like, "Have you thought about, like, making amends with that person?" And I've told them, like, I have love for that person, but honestly, the amount of peace that has grown in my life since that is tremendous, and I'm not gonna give that up.
amen. I found this quote by somebody named Sharon Martin. I have no idea who she is, but I just came across it while I was writing for this podcast. And it says, detaching means stepping back from obsessively worrying about others, telling others what to do, and rescuing them. When we detach, we let others be responsible for their own choices, and we don't interfere or try to protect them from any negative consequences that may result. I loved
I
that.
love that.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard to do, but I love
It
it.
is. It's of course it's hard to do. We care about them and sometimes abandon our own needs to lift them up in certain ways. It was funny. Funny, whatever, relevant. I was talking to this guy on Hinge yesterday, and he's very much into going to therapy and psychology. And so, like, I appreciate our conversations. It's more than like, you know, oh,
Surface level.
what are you doing today? How was your day? Boring shit, right?
Mhm.
So, but I don't know if we always disagree on things, but it's still interesting having these conversations. And I told him that we had a podcast and I wasn't really, I guess, consciously thinking about the title of the podcast, but I told him, I'm going to go home and write for it. The title of this next one is like leaving toxic friendships. And he said to me, which I thought was interesting, he said that sometimes we overuse the therapy speak when it's convenient for us and tempting to pathologize other people. And so
Mhm.
that made me think about what I was writing for this episode. There is some friendships I let go of that weren't necessarily quote unquote toxic. They didn't do anything hurtful to me. They didn't lie to me. Just the behaviors that I mean, they loved me and I love them too, but it's just we weren't in alignment anymore. And then there was other friendships that blatantly did things that were very hurtful. So I just thought that was important to share that just because you
Oh,
have to
yeah.
end friendships or relationships or family members you don't want to be as close to anymore, it doesn't necessarily mean that they did anything wrong.
No. Like we said before, it could just be that you don't align anymore.
Mhm. I
And
have
I think
some Go
I have
ahead.
some long-term friendships from, like, childhood, and honestly, I think there's only, like, aside from cousins. Cousins are funny because, like, they become your friends, but they're
Yeah.
also technically family.
Mhm.
But non-familiar friend, I really feel like I only have like about one left. And throughout our like we've been friends since we were like 8 years old. But throughout the past 20 plus years of friendship, there's been times when we were super close and did a lot together. There's been times when we just really didn't align and we didn't hang out so much. But if one of us ever needed something, we you knew we could reach out to each other. And now there's 800 plus miles between us. So we don't talk often. But when I came back to Michigan and lived there for a while, she was the only person that was willing to take me in during COVID. And I truly like, I say to this day, like she saved my life and I would not be here today without her. So
Aw.
just yeah, just because like and when I was in Georgia at that time, like I didn't feel super close to her. She had went through of course, like I flew home for her wedding and helped her with her wedding, but there were other like big life things that she went through that I didn't hear about till much, much later. And those would have been things that, we would have shared right away with each other before. So they fluctuate. I think you're gonna just like in a romantic relationship, you're gonna know when it's time to go.
Yeah. I
I
think
think
it's
I have held on to friendships a lot longer than I should have.
I have too. And when I started to feel like when they called and I would start to feel like or just show up because sometimes people don't respect boundaries and they just show up at your house, I was like, "Ugh." Like, no, you start to feel like someone's reaching out to you and you're just already exhausted. Like the moment that they reach out to you and it's like, no. Like dreading even having to have a
Yeah.
conversation with them if it gets to that point. That's really hard because you don't wanna hurt these people either. So how do you even have it's hard to have those conversations with them if you've already set boundaries, like, "Please don't show up to my house, please call me first," and then they continue to do that, and then you have to get firm with them. I've had
Yeah.
somebody, get upset with me and think that I don't care about them because they didn't wanna respect my boundaries.
Yeah, and I think that's the first thing you have to do is set those boundaries with because you can't expect them to just know how to treat you. We've talked about this in romantic relationships. Like you have to explicitly tell them what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. And I think for me, I for the majority of my friendships did not do that. So then when I went through this awakening, I, had this realization I was letting people walk all over me, talk to me any kind of way, use me, and so I started gradually implementing these boundaries with people. And I think you do have to give them grace too, especially if you're someone that you had zero boundaries before and now you're like implementing these boundaries. They've only known you as this other person. So
Yeah.
you're actually having this huge change when you start to implement these boundaries and say, actually, I don't like when you do that. I don't like when you tell me that my body is not I had a friend tell me like I was single and I was sending a guy a picture and I was like, "I'm gonna send them this cute little picture." And she was like, what are you even sending him a picture of? Like, you have no curves. Like, what
Oh,
are what are you doing?" That friendship is no longer existing. But like little like I would let my friends talk to me any type
yeah.
of way and do any type of thing. So of course they're gonna be like, "What do you mean I can't do those things anymore?" So I think you have to have, like, this grace period of, like, giving them a chance to understand your boundaries.
Mhm.
But like you said, if you've set that boundary and they still are showing up at your house unannounced, ugh, I hate unannounced
I do
visitors.
too, because I love my space and my quiet time. Please don't disrupt that.
Yes. And people mistake your free time for your availability.
Yes, they
Just
do.
because I'm home and I'm not working right now doesn't mean I'm available for you.
Right. I remember when I was in nursing school, I had this friend and I live all the way up close to Flint, and if anybody knows anything about Michigan, it's about an hour, hour and a half from the Detroit airport, and she needed a ride to the airport on a Sunday. It was the only day that one of the only days I had off that week. I was working full time. I was in nursing school, and she really wanted me to give her a ride to the airport, and I said, "I'm sorry, you're gonna have to ask somebody else or get an Uber. I cannot do this." Oh. She was so upset with me and did not understand why I couldn't do that
Oh,
for her, and I think that was a very pivotal moment for me in that friendship, just that she couldn't empathize with how exhausted and how much I'm taking on in my life right now and what I needed, and so I was trying to give her suggestions on how she could get there, but the fact that I would not give her a ride was very hurtful to her in her eyes.
that's interesting.
Mhm.
I don't know if I've ever been that bold. I have struggled with asking anyone for anything.
Mhm.
So I don't know that I've ever, like, gotten mad at someone for not going out of their way to do something for me.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely bold. That friendship no longer exists. Yeah, I mean, as far as the airport goes, you can go there and park your car and pay for it.
Certainly, that's
And
what I do every time I fly
I
somewhere. It's
yeah.
not cheap, but
No, it's not. I do that too.
travel isn't cheap.
No, it's not. So I think it's important to go over some kind of behaviors that are not healing or healthy types of friendships. The type of friends that use you for various reasons, whether it's money or material things. I felt very used in that last example that I gave. Just, I couldn't do something for her, so she was just that upset with me. If they only call you and ask you for favors, or if they only want to have fun with you and cancel plans on you to go do something else that's more fun for them, or if
Yep.
they kind of use you just for like the connections that you have or to get closer to somebody else or something like that. When it's emotionally one-sided, I think this is the biggest thing in my past friendships that have affected me and why we're no longer friends. I feel like I was starting to get more absorbed by their world, and had compassion and understanding for the struggles that they were experiencing, and I almost felt like, of course, we all experience things that are hard on us or things that we need to share with our friends that we want their perspectives, but I felt like they were going through so much that I didn't wanna burden them with the things I was going through, and I started to notice when I did bring up things that were important to me that I needed to talk about or vent about, the conversation would quickly jump to how whatever they're going through is compared to what I'm going through or what they're going through is like, well, I got to go through this. Be thankful that you're not going through this. Saying
Mm.
things to me like, oh, you'll get over it. Don't worry about it. Or, that's what you signed up for. It is what it is.
Oh,
And
damn.
they would never really offer me sound, solid advice and acknowledge that I was hurting, or I never felt like they would just take the time to like see me and listen to me. The past was no
I
longer.
have a note about that too.
Go ahead.
I
Yeah,
have a
share it.
friend that when I was starting to implement these boundaries and things in my life, I expressed to this one friend that it was very difficult. All we spoke about was the things that were going on in her life. She was actively ruining her life, like losing custody of her kids, but continuing to do the things that was causing her to lose custody. And I was like, you don't want to listen to me, but you call me every single day and complain about how your life is going. And I give you sound advice and you continue to just do the things you want to do. And I told her, I was like, I can't hold space for this anymore. Like it's a lot and it's hard to see you sit there and ruin your life. And her response to me was, "Well, yeah, imagine how hard it was, being your friend during." She referred to like our last episode, my dark night of the soul. She was there for me through that, which I was very grateful for. And so then I was like, "Oh." And I was like, "I'm really sorry that I put you through that and I didn't realize that it was that difficult for you, now
Mhm.
looking back, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that I mean, that would have been a hard time to be my friend." And I said, "I really wish you would have said something to me during that time." We've said it before, just because you say something to someone doesn't mean they're gonna make any changes, but I had no idea that I was burdening other people by complaining about what was going on in my life.
I think that It is like when you're in it, you can give the best advice to people in the world and be that person from the outside looking in, and you can see how how their behaviors and their patterns and their habits are affecting them. And it's directly correlated to the things that they're complaining about every day. Me
Yeah.
as well. Like I especially like in relationships, like I'll give my last relationship as an example. I would talk to you or talk to my girlfriend Ty and bitch and complain about his behavior and how much it was hurting me, but I would still stay with him. So at some point it had to be I had to come to the realization that it's really just me against me, and I had to leave that relationship in order to find peace. I agree with you though. It's very hard to be friends with people that continue the same behaviors and then complain about it every single day. I've been one of those people, and how long, how much grace do you give somebody? I think, I had this one friend, it was kind of the same situation, and we were friends since middle school, and we had kids together. Our sons were the same age, and she got married and was married for a while, and I was friends with her during that, and then gradually she started doing things that I were hurtful to her and her marriage. Substance abuse was a factor, and every day it was this life-shattering event in her life that she would call me with. She ended up losing her kids, her husband ended up divorcing her, and I still felt for her though, like I was still very much so present in her life and trying to be a good support system for her because she didn't have the type of family structure that I had, and we were both very young. And the last straw with that friendship was I had let her borrow $200 and she asked me for more money. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't lend you any more money until you pay me back the money that you already owe me. And like a week later, she messaged me, hey, I left that $200 in your mailbox. And I'm like, that's strange. Why wouldn't you just hand it to me? And
Mhm.
they're like, well, let me go check my mailbox. Of course, it wasn't there. And I'm like, "Okay,
No.
you're just lying." And that's when I completely cut ties with this person. But I don't know if that wouldn't have happened, I don't know if I would have cut ties with her. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I don't know how much longer I would have continued to help her and be there for her, even though it was really draining for me. 'Cause I
You
felt
mentioned
bad.
something there.
I felt
Yeah.
bad for her.
I've had many friendships that I've hung on to because I knew what they went through their childhood, and I
Mhm.
knew all the horrible things that they had been through, and I had so much empathy for them. I'm like, they're really and we are just all doing our best, but that doesn't mean that we other people have to suffer while we're figuring stuff out. And so many people I have someone in my life right now that I'm like teetering the fence on, do I continue this relationship? And it's because I'll see glimmers of like them doing a little bit better. I'm like, okay, they're on the right track, they're trying, they're putting in the work. But then there's all these other things that happen. And it's like this weighted scales of like, when do you say enough is enough?
Yeah. Or maybe just not make yourself so available. It's really hard. It's
Yes.
really hard because you don't wanna just disown people. You just wanna throw
No.
people away, but I think that I don't know, I just have to limit my availability now for people like that.
And I've watched a lot of videos where, because maybe it's not that you want to end the friendship, but you just want to maybe put less energy into it.
Mhm.
But I've seen so many videos where people are like, and I get this, like, you need to explicitly say to someone, this is why I'm falling back. And that has not been something that has been my strong suit in friendships. Like I've mentioned, it's been hard for me to tell someone else what I need and tell them. So many times in friendships, I've just kind of, reached out less and
Same, yeah.
kind of fallen back. And sometimes that's a natural ebb and flow. But then other times I've had the person reach out and say, hey, I noticed that you're not reaching out as much and you're not interested in getting together like we used to get together. And that's when I had to have the tough conversation because obviously it was affecting them. They were noticing it. If the other person doesn't notice it, then I don't know. We I don't know. But this person, and that actually became the demise of our friendship. And in the conversation, I told them, I was like, I love you so much. I am rooting for you, but your presence is a negative presence in my life right now. There's things that you're doing, and explicitly laid out, these things that you do affect me in a negative way. And so I don't want to physically be around you, but I want to support you from a distance.
Mhm.
And that person, they had other abandonment issues in their life, and they took that really hard, and they blocked me on everything, and that was the end of our friendship. That wasn't my intention going into that conversation. I was trying to say, like, I need more space, but they took it very harshly, and we are no longer friends.
That's hard. I think it's like losing any type of relationship though when you it's how it's I felt affected by I've cried over losing my friends, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
And going into the next point that I have, the past is no longer the present. There are
Mhm.
certain things that these people I used to be friends with, I used to participate in some of the things that mm, brought us closer together as friends, I guess I'll say, as far as like before I started getting into college, my weekends would be filled with going out and drinking and staying up really late, being surrounded by a whole bunch of people that weren't really bringing value to my life. And as I evolved a little bit and started being interested in other things and started, not drinking anymore and learning new things about myself or getting into therapy and spending more time in nature and meditating and journaling and just trying to do a 180 for me, they took it personal. Like,
Mhm.
why, like, you're too good for me now. And it had nothing to do about being too good for somebody. It just had to do with not being in alignment with the things that they were doing anymore. I didn't feel
Mhm.
good,
I remember.
depressing. It's depressing going out and drinking every weekend if that's what you look forward to every week. I wanna look forward to every day whether I'm working or not. I don't wanna have the weekend be the goal of the
Right, that's the only
pleasure
place
in
I
my
get my
life.
dopamine.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
not what a joyful life is to me, is going out and drinking every weekend. I wanna spend my money and save
During
my money for other things.
Oh gosh, yeah. During the summer of my awakening, I was initially, like, going out every weekend with this friend. I lived very close to the bars, so she lived, like, an hour away, so she would come and stay with me, and we'd go to the bar, she'd get super drunk, she would be laying in bed for the whole next day. I'd be up, cleaning my house, going wanting to go and do stuff, but I have this person sleeping in my guest room that's drunk, and eventually more and more, I'm like the next morning, I'm like, I'm ready to go hike by 8 a.m.
Mhm.
I never have, like, drank heavy anyway, so, like, at that point, wasn't really having hangovers. I would maybe have a couple drinks when we were out, and then it finally got to the point there was one weekend where she wanted to go out to the bar, and I had a friend in town visiting, and we went out for a little bit, and I was like, it's like 10 PM, and I'm like, I don't wanna be here till 2 AM. And she's like, "Well, you're gonna have to come back and get me when the bar closes." And I was like, "You can take an Uber."
Mhm.
And she's like, "No." And I went home, went to bed. She called me at 2 AM, and I went and picked her up and brought her back to my apartment. And after that, I was like, "No, I can't do this anymore."
That was nice of you. And this wasn't very similar in my friendship as well. This wasn't something that just happened overnight. It was over a time period, and I did realize that when I was going out with this friend, She did drink more heavily than me, and I always felt like it was my responsibility to get her home safe,
Yep.
and I would still leave and go get her sometimes as well, and I just stopped doing that, and when I stopped doing that and I stopped going out every weekend, I realized that she also wasn't trying to make the effort to be close to me anymore either, and after a while, the it kinda fizzled out. I don't know. We don't keep in touch. She did some things that weren't very kind that I found out later, so all the way around it, I'm grateful that friendship's over with. Even though during that
Mhm.
time, it was fun, I loved her. I think it was
Yeah.
what I needed. I needed that close person every day.
Yeah.
Dishonest friends, and not just friends that, like, straight up blatantly lie to you, but people that I mean, tell me if I got lipstick on my teeth or something on my ass for sure. But if I'm doing something in my life that's why I really appreciate you and our friendship because you'll ask me certain questions. If I'm doing something, you'll ask me certain questions, like, in my last relationship, like, "Does this feel healthy to you?" And you make me sit back and you kinda make me think about my behavior because I know I'd be off the wall sometimes with some stuff. Um, but you
I've been
like
there too.
you and my girlfriend Ty, you guys don't cheer me into a fucking ditch.
Mhm.
You give me honest feedback about anything that I ask you about. I feel like it's honest feedback, even if it's something that contradicts what I'm doing. People on to the next one, someone who's jealous of you, or you feel like you're in constant competition with them. There's just one friend I had, I remember, once again, friend I knew since kindergarten, and we rekindled our relationship in my early 20s. And I remember it was this girl's 21st birthday. I had already turned 21. And I mean, she's not getting married or anything, right? And so we're going to dress up. We're going to go out to a couple bars and what do you want to wear tonight? Well, we're going to all wear dresses. And then like I show up and I mean, I look cute and she's really upset with me like, "I'm the birthday girl. Why are you trying to outshine me?"
Oh, no.
And I'm like, "I'm
I thought this was what you wanted.
how am I supposed to be different than how I look?" I don't
Right.
know. I've had another friend, and she actually I appreciated her directness with this, I even though it was very hurtful to me. And this was again like in my early 20s, but it could be anybody could treat you like this. We kind of had the same group of friends, but I would notice, like, they would start to go out and do things on the weekend sometimes, and, like, I wouldn't get invited. Sometimes I'd get invited, sometimes I wouldn't, and it was like or they would just kind of ignore me or blow me off or not tell me where they were going to, and I'm like, "Why why are you doing that?" And she straight up told me, "It's because we're trying to, find guys, and you kind of take the attention away from that." Because she
Oh.
felt like I was more pretty than her, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," I'm so sorry that you feel that insecure, I don't know, I personally would never say that to somebody, but it was like, that was really hard for me, like, you don't want me to be a part of your friend group because, again, like, the way I look? I don't know, it was kinda hard to hear that.
Yeah. Dang. I don't I I've never experienced that, but I've experienced jealousy in a friendship where I didn't realize that we were in constant competition with each other because it wasn't a competition for me, but this
Right.
other person was very much jealous and very much, and I would downplay it. Like I'm a highly accomplished person, but I don't feel the need to brag about it. And
Mhm.
I would never wanted to make my friends feel lesser or anything like that. So I wouldn't like boast about stuff that I do, but like I might mention like, "Hey, I got a promotion or something," and then they would downplay it or
Yes,
whatever.
that's my next point is the ones that are never truly happy for us.
Mhm.
Yep, they don't acknowledge your accomplishments, they don't celebrate you, they don't even post something on social media or I don't know, like, why? Because I would do that for them.
Yeah.
You know, I would, of course, do that for them no matter what it was or even your birthday or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend that every birthday was like a 21st birthday. So
Mhm.
they expected all of their friends to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a weekend every year for their birthday, whether it was going on a trip or going, out to expensive places. And and then every single time they would throw a fit if it didn't go perfectly as planned of how they had it in their head. So that was when I started to learn, like, I would dread going and hanging out with this person, not just on their birthday weekend because I knew they were gonna throw a fit no matter how nice we tried to make it.
Mhm.
But that's kind of how it always was. There was always gonna be this, like, negative part of it. And and that's not to say that we didn't have fun and good memories, but the more and more I could feel that dread, like that pit in my stomach of, "Oh, I don't wanna hang out with this person." If you're feeling that, I think that's the biggest indicator that it's at least time to create distance in that relationship, if not end it.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you start to notice that they lack integrity and talk inappropriately about their friends and their family behind their back to you, just about their personal stuff or just shit talking basically. People that
Yeah.
never just the people that never change. Like we said earlier, the people that are comfortable with continually overstepping your boundaries after you set them. Next, I have the kind of friendships that I welcome into my life now. Is there anything else you want to add to the topics?
I think we've hit most of them. I think just like them being a selfish person in general, I think we've kind of said that, and just making everything about themselves and never like showing a genuine interest in what's going on in your life. Like if the only time you reach out to me is to complain about everything in your life and you don't even ask me, "Hey, how are you?"
Right, right. Hopefully
But
you
yeah,
can't
what
hear
are some friendships we wanna keep?
I'll get into that. Beyonce, my cat, is outside my door, very upset that she's not a part of this
Oh, no.
conversation. So if you can hear her on this podcast, I
We might
apologize.
have to make her the 3rd
Yeah,
co-host.
there we go. Yeah, she's got a lot to say. So the kind of friendships I welcome to my life now, I'm okay with having a couple close friends now. I do not need a big friend group. It's a lot of not that I want to call it maintenance, but the quality. I value the quality of the people in my life and not okay, they reach out to you simply to check on you and they can kind of tell when your behavior changes if you go into your a depressed state or if you're more distant than usual. They're on it like, hey, what's going on, how are you doing? When you need the emotional support, they listen and they validate your feelings, and sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you. You don't need the advice. And so I think it's important to ask your friends like, hey, do you want my advice on this or do you just need me to listen to you and just understand how you feel?
That's something I'm trying to implement more, like, if someone just vents to me a lot of times, like, if you're looking for advice, you'll ask me, "Hey, I want your advice on this."
You will too.
Yeah, and then other times, if it's just venting, I'm trying to before I just jump in and try to give some suggestions,
Mhm.
I'm trying to ask more, like, "Do you want advice or were you just venting?"
Yeah, I think a part of us has been conditioned from our careers in nursing to be problem solvers and fixers. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
somebody comes and says something to me, I instantly need to find a solution for them. And
Yep.
I'm trying to learn more like people don't always need solutions. They just need just a shoulder to lean
To be
on.
heard.
Yeah. Someone that encourages you and celebrates you and tells you that they're proud of you. Someone that takes accountability.
Absolutely.
I like friendships like how we've have been expressing ourselves throughout this podcast. People that take accountability for their behavior in the past, like past relationships, whether it's romantic or friendship, and they can admit that they've also been the problem.
Yeah.
If someone cancels plans with you and they make an effort to reschedule them, and if you, I mean, I've canceled plans on people just because, hey, I'm exhausted right now and I can't. At the time when I made these plans, I felt great, but today I'm not feeling great. I just want to sit home and do nothing today. Not, hey, I found something a lot
Mhm.
better to do, you know?
Right. I just need to recharge.
Yeah. You feel safe telling people your secrets. When they speak about other people in their life, it's with love and respect.
That one's huge.
Mhm.
And that's one that I haven't always and it's on me, like, I've held on to a lot of relationships I shouldn't have, but in the midst of that, I would then complain to my other friends about this person, and I've seen the opposite, in other friendships where a person comes to me and all they do is talk bad about all these people that they consider their best friends, and I'm like, "Well, then what are you saying about me
Yeah,
behind my back?"
100%. When you have disagreements with your friends, it doesn't turn into a fight, and
Yes.
and that's definitely happened before. And usually it was disagreements and fights about after I set my boundaries. They
Mm,
weren't happy about how I wasn't benefiting them.
right.
That's usually what it was. And I think most importantly, you can laugh together and share a good sense of humor. You like to do the same things. You're on the same healing journey or interested in a lot of the same things. You can learn from each other. You give good, honest feedback. Do you have anything you want to add?
Just this quote that I found that says, "Stick with the people that bring the magic out of you, not the madness." So, if you can reflect on the time you spend with friends and do you feel fulfilled afterwards? I have a friend in my life right now who is just an absolute joy, and we spend time with her and her family, and I absolutely love it. And I come home just feeling so fulfilled. And that was something I was lacking so much in my life in like other friendships.
Mhm.
So it's just like a confirmation of like, yes, this is the people that I need in my life right now.
Yeah. I love that. That's good. I'm glad that you have so many friends down there and you don't
I don't really. I literally just have her and her family and this other friend that is
Well, I
that
guess
is
not so many friends, but
teetering.
yeah. Well
I was gonna say I've joined a local girls group here, and there's been a couple meetups. I went to one. It was interesting. I didn't really like make any friends out of it.
mhm.
I'm trying to make more like new friends as an adult because I know like for 30 some years of my life I was masking. I was being what anyone around me wanted me to be and I wasn't being my true self. So luckily I do have some of those friendships that have allowed me to grow and we still connect and we still have a great friendship. And then some of them did fall off because we only aligned because I was molding myself to be what they wanted me to be.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to build more genuine connections as an adult. But like you said, I don't need to have a bunch of friends. Like, who has time for it? For one, as an adult, like you, especially with children, like I have a little bit more time, but I've been filling my time with like recharging my battery and,
Absolutely.
and doing hobbies that I enjoy. So,
And I consider myself my best friend now,
mhm,
and I love to spend time with myself. I I value my alone time and my peace, and I enjoy my own company. I don't need
yeah.
a constant company.
I think one thing we haven't asked each other is, have you ever been broken up with in a friendship? Like, has it ever been the other person breaking up with you?
Mm, no, I don't.
I
I'm trying to think about. I'm really trying to tell me your experience, and I'll
Okay.
I'll reflect on that.
I've never had someone, like, blatantly come out to me, except for maybe in, like, junior high school, I don't know, and say,
Right.
like, "I don't wanna be your friend anymore." But I have had 2 lifelong friends, like, we've been friends since kindergarten, who we definitely don't align anymore. One of them went to prison and did some pretty horrendous things to go to prison,
Mm,
and
mm,
in that alone, I when he went to prison, I was like, first of all, this is not the person I've known my whole life. I know this person to be sweet and kind, and that's how they were the majority of my life until they got into some really bad things. And it brought me to even thinking, like, how do you I think of people now this person isn't like a serial he didn't murder anyone. He did do some violent crimes, but like how do families of murderers and pedophiles and things how do they reconcile who they thought they knew versus who they're seeing today? And even like my bio dad's own family, like they stuck by his side through everything, and I lost that entire family that I had had for so long. So he went to prison for some years, and when he got out, I was hopeful. I was hopeful that he had changed his life and that things had gotten better, and maybe they did for a little bit, but he got right back into the same things, and there came a time where I just had to distance myself from that person, but what he and what this other person would do, both of them, and we all grew up together. They would both, like, unfriend me on social media when they were getting really bad into, like, addiction and different things. I think because they knew, like, I was gonna reach out to them and be like, "What the fuck are you doing with your life?"
yeah, maybe they just
Because
felt
I was always
maybe they just felt ashamed and didn't wanna disappoint you and
Yeah, probably. But that's the only times where I'd, like, go to, like, look at their page or something, and I would be blocked, and I'd be like, "Oh, I guess we're not friends anymore."
mhm. I did have this one friend. So, we were both all in the same friend group, and she was dating this one guy, and I met a guy I was dating because he was friends with the guy she was dating. And
Mm,
so we all, she was dating him for a while, and I was dating this other guy for a while. And then her and that guy broke up, me and this guy broke up. And I find out that she is now with the guy that I was dating, who's also friends with the other
oh.
guy she was dating. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe they probably are a better fit for each other, but that's still hurtful. It was still hurtful to me, although but I was so close with her family, and I sincerely like, I was the one that ended the relationship with this guy. She started dating him, like, well after we had broken up, and so
Mm.
there wasn't even really anything to forgive. It was still kinda hurtful, but I could be okay with it. I could understand it, and she ended up having 2 kids with him, and I don't think he treated her very well, and I think that the relationship had ended, but she's distanced herself from me
Mm.
and kinda chose, that relationship with him over our friendship. So, it wasn't anything that she said to me really that ended the
Mhm.
friendship. It was just kinda like she just stopped talking to me, even though I was still close with her family, and it was kinda strange.
That would be hard.
Mhm.
What do you think are good ways to end a relationship, a friendship?
I think that we did kind of already touch on this. When someone doesn't do anything to hurt you, you just kinda say to them, just set those boundaries, like the things that you're doing. I no longer value these behaviors as something that brings me peace. It's no longer something I want to do in my life because it doesn't challenge me to grow. But if somebody does something to you, like this one friend I had, I found out later on, like I left something at a party. She found it there, sold it to somebody else. It was like a brand new hoodie, and then she helped me look for it. After like that was crazy. So after I found that out through like somebody else, and then when I confronted her about it, she's like, "You didn't even care about that guy that gave you that sweater anyways." And it was like, "Oh, wow."
So you're just excusing your behavior and
Mhm.
deflecting.
Yeah, and so I blatantly said, "I can no longer be friends with you. I can't even believe you would do this do this to me. I would never do that to you." So, when she did that, it was just, like, super immature and petty and just kinda really showed me who she was. If she could do that, I mean, she claimed that she loved me and I was her best friend. She talked to me every single day. I mean, it was, like it was pretty hurtful. So, in that case, I did tell her no more, and then when the earlier my friend that pretended like she put money in my mailbox that she owed me, I I was like, "No, I can't do that anymore."
Yeah.
So
I think there are times when there's blatant disrespect when it's kinda easy to end it, and then there are times when, you're just having that pit feeling in your stomach, like, "I don't wanna spend time with this person." I think that's when it becomes a little bit more difficult. I think for me, I've had to have, like, people around me be like, "You are friends with this person and they do this." Just like in my last marriage, like, sometimes I need other people to realize it for me
Mhm.
because I will just give people chances and chances and chances, especially if I see, like, they're trying a little bit. I have,
Yeah.
like, that glimmer of hope that they're gonna do better, but I am personally trying to get better at not just ghosting someone and expressing to them why things are different between us, and it's
Mhm.
it's not easy to do.
Yeah, in the past, I've had a tendency if it wasn't, like, something blatant, I've had a tendency to kinda just lean back in my own energy and just not give them as much as attention as I used to. This is kind of a whole
Mhm.
'nother subject, but have you ever been in a relationship where your partner doesn't like your friendships?
Well, so that's something. Yes, I feel like almost probably every partner I've had has at least disliked some friend, and sometimes for good reason.
Right.
Um, I don't know that I've experienced kind of like what you did in your last relationship where they were just blatantly trying to disconnect me from any friends, because that's
Yeah.
different.
Correct.
But
He
yeah, like,
tried to isolate me and
yes.
100%. But I've also been in relationships where yeah, good reasons they did not like this person or want me hanging out with this person, and I think that was hard too.
Yeah, and I'm currently experiencing that right now. There's a friend I have that my husband has laid out like, "Hey, I don't like this person. If you wanna still be friends with them, that's fine. They did this and this to us, like, they did things specifically to us." He's like, "I'm not investing any more of my energy into that."
Mhm.
And he gives me the opportunity to choose if I'm going to do that, but that has made me also think, like, "Do I need to stay in this friendship?" And I'm very cautious about it too, especially because of what have you experienced. I was like, "Okay, well, do you want me to not?" And that's not the truth. Like, that thought doesn't even come like, "Do you not want me to have any friends?" Because he's very supportive. He's very supportive of our friendship,
Mhm.
other healthy friendships that I have. So there's a clear difference,
Oh,
and
yeah,
he's just setting his boundary.
I know your husband sincerely cares about your emotional and mental well-being, and he doesn't wanna isolate you from the world. He wouldn't even be
No.
okay with you doing this podcast if he was anything like my ex, so I know that that's not his intention, so if he does say something like that to you, yeah, you should probably take what he's saying into high consideration because
Yeah.
he wants the best for you, and if he knows that somebody isn't giving you a loving, genuine friendship, then I would definitely trust his perspective on that.
Definitely. I do have one other thing that I didn't think about until right before we started, and it's how to cope with losing a friendship because like we
Mm.
mentioned, friends are like family. When they've I mean, I have 20 plus year friendships and I truly see them. Even like my one friend that went to prison, he's always going to be my brother even if we don't talk and even if I don't agree with what he's done. Like he was so ingrained in my family, like always at our house, grew up with me. So there is that part of it, but there's also the part that I can't be friends with who he is today.
Yeah.
So here are some tips of how to cope with ending a friendship. You might want to avoid social media that might be upsetting. So I've experienced, a lot of times you end up, deleting each other on social media, and that's probably a good idea. But you might still have mutual friends. So maybe those mutual friends are posting things with that other person. For me, that hasn't been bothersome to me, but it might be bothersome to others to see like the mutual friends still hanging out with that other person.
Mhm.
Seek out creative ways to get your brain engaged. This says distractions, and I don't like distractions because that's taking you away from what you need to heal. Make a fun plan with another friend or just yourself. Prioritize taking care of yourself. Sit with your feelings. So don't disassociate. Honor that you're heartbroken. Even if you wanted that friendship to end, honor that in yourself and sit through that. Trust that new friends will come along and find the appreciation that you have for the people that are still in your life. Give yourself the time to heal. So don't just feel like, oh, tomorrow I just need to be over this. Like, and understand that it's going to come in waves. My phone just popped up a photo memory. I don't know why it does this to you.
I
It pops up
know.
the most heartbreaking photo
I
memories. And I'm
know.
like,
I wonder if there's a way to turn that off. Mine does it all the time too, and I'm like, "What the fuck?"
yeah, I'm sure there's a setting, but you might have pictures pop up that, remind you of the good times. And
Mhm.
that's fine. Stay open to meeting new people. You may have felt so burnt from that last relationship that you are scared to open up to anyone else. Definitely give it some time and readjust your feelers for people. Take note of maybe some things that you didn't notice in the other friendship, just like in relationships, those red flags. And know that your memories matter. Just because that friendship ended does not mean that you didn't have good times together and that there weren't good things and that that person's probably still maybe they're still a good person, you just don't align anymore.
The ones that hurt
Explore
you,
some
sorry, I was gonna say the ones that hurt you, just forgive them. That would be
Yeah, and
so
this one
hard.
says write them a letter that you don't send. So maybe
Oh,
they
I
did
like that.
hurt you bad.
Mhm.
Write them out, this is how you hurt me, this is how it made me feel, this is how it affected me. And you could burn it. There's all kinds of ceremonial things you can do with that, but it really feels good to get those thoughts out.
Mhm. Send it.
You said send it?
Yeah.
Go ahead and let them know.
I think that, I have a very justice-oriented heart, and it's hard for me to stay silent when I feel someone has wronged me nowadays.
I feel that, and I do feel like you should have your chance to get your point across for sure.
But also, I have written letters, though, that I have not sent, and more so romantic things. Once you just accept
Mhm.
that they're no longer gonna change, you've exhausted everything you can into them, and enough is enough. So, for sure, don't send them all.
Yeah. 'Cause I think of those times, like, maybe when you did have that final argument or whatever, when
Mhm.
you finally let everything out, but then, like, a week later, you're like, "Oh, I wish I would have said this, and I wish," like, there
Mhm.
was more you needed to get out, and maybe you weren't able to all at that time. Definitely. And I think in closing, there is a quote by Tupac, and it
Ooh.
says, "Just because you lost me as a friend doesn't mean you gained me as an enemy." And I think so many people automatically think that just because we're not friends anymore, now you're the enemy. And I can't ever speak positively about you or whatever it might be. And I totally don't feel that way. I
Mm-mm.
have so much love for the people that are out of, even if they did me wrong, like I still have so much love for you. And I hope that you flourish and I hope you accomplish all the things you want to in your life and that nothing but good comes to you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Now that I'm a little bit more self-aware of why I do the things that I do, whether it's, from past experiences in my adult life or my childhood, I can see why so many people are suffering and have these deep-rooted issues from their own experiences in childhood and why they treated me a certain way. I mean,
Oh,
they
yeah.
they don't have the ability to. I mean, you can sit back and look at the things that they're doing that are hindering their own growth and detrimental to their own life and the people that they love, and I hold love and empathy for them, but I can't accept them in my life anymore, and that's okay. Well, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
We would like to hear how your friendships have ended, or ways to make new friends. I find it hard to make new friends. Not
Ooh.
that I really try to. I don't feel like I need a whole lot more friends. But yeah, let us know. And thank you for joining in today.
Yeah. Thank you for supporting our show. Definitely, if you want to support us even further, share this with someone that you think would enjoy it. That would grow our audience and help get our community growing even more. If you haven't already, please follow and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen and get your podcasts.
We're also on YouTube.
Namaste.
Namaste.